Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to Going Beyond Wolverhampton. I'm your host, Akmal Rafiq. Joining me today are Shahab and Bilal. Shahab and Bilal both went to Adams Grammar School and they both went on to study mechanical engineering at university. Shahab went to Cardiff University, where he did a year in industry and is currently doing his master's. And Bilal, he went to Bristol University, did his master's, and now he's working as a design engineer in Telford. Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing
Um,
good.
So my first question is, why did you both choose to study engineering?
Who wants to go first?
Shahab, you can go first.
so everyone has that moment where they got to think between whether they want to do engineering or, well, medicine or something else. And for me, it was I kind of decided when I went to GP practice, I got a little bored. I'll be honest. Um, I like to be in a very active environment, and I felt like engineering was that for me. So when I was at school, I had a DT, design and technology, and while doing that subject, it was really entertaining for me, and like it pushed me to want to learn myself. So I felt like it was what I would prefer doing in the future. So that's why I continued to follow that path.
For me, it was much of the same, to be fair. Honestly, there was two options for me, medicine or engineering. Not because I was forced in any way, but those are the only two options I could see myself being or becoming. And I honestly, it boiled down to me not liking biology as much as I liked maths and physics. And I thought engineering was the best way to apply those subjects in my working life, I guess. More maths and less memorization, I guess. That was one of the reasons why I chose engineering. The other reason is because I saw what the work-life balance of a doctor is, especially a doctor who works in the hospital. It's just on calls, working on weekends, unpaid overtime. It didn't really sit right with me. So that's one of the reasons, other reasons why I chose engineering.
Did you guys feel any like family pressure at all to study like medicine? Because I know both your fathers are doctors, and like Shahab, your older sister's a dentist, and Bilal, your older sister's also a doctor. Like, was it any kind of like you had to follow the trend at all, or were you comfortable just choosing your own path?
I mean, initially you think there is a little pressure, but genuinely I felt no pressure from my family. They were
Yeah.
really encouraging of it. They always said, "Do what makes you feel happy," and I'm quite happy that I was in that sort of situation. I was quite fortunate in that sense.
For me, there was no pressure in the sense that my parents were like, you have to do medicine, right? But there was a passive pressure of probably being in my comfort zone, right? If I do medicine, I have so much support around me. And I know I can see myself where I would be in 10, 20 years' time because there's people like my parents who've gone through the exact same process, right? It was a much, much less scarier option to take if I chose to take it. And I feel like that has, or at least in school, pushed me to try to attempt medicine, which later on I decided was not the best choice for me.
Fair enough. So in the end, you both am I correct that you both did mechanical engineering, right?
Yeah.
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 So what exactly is mechanical engineering? Can you describe it to me?
You want to go furthest below?
Well, okay, so I know what I did in mechanical engineering, and I guess the best way to explain it would be if I had knowledge of other engineering courses, which I don't as much. But I guess mechanical engineering is a good starting point for any engineering job because you learn so many different uh, modules which are relevant in many industries, right? So, for example, even though mechanical, you would think I'd be working with, I guess, mechanical components, I still had experience with electronics, especially with my dissertation, where I created I had like small projects with Arduinos, and you learn so much about everything. I feel like it's a good starting point for anyone who's attempting to do engineering. Yeah, I guess that's what that's the best way I can explain mechanical engineering. What about you, Shahab?
For mechanical engineering, for me anyway, when you're when you're just coming into uni, I don't think it really matters which engineering you choose, to be honest. The first couple of years are transferable from a majority of the degrees, unless you do medical engineering, which I only found out existed when I came to university. Medical engineering is quite a fast, like in my opinion, would have been better suited for some of the things I wanted to do. But the courses aren't as well developed. So if anybody is looking into medical engineering or engineering in general, definitely look at medical engineering, but look at where you're doing it. But first couple of years are definitely transferable. I can switch between electrical, mechanical, and the civil sciences ones as well. But when it came to third year, mechanical in my sense is definitely physical engineering, physical engineering. So not like electrical, not like computational, but it's very like physical. But then I'm fortunate enough that well, I feel like everyone is at this. When you get to third and fourth year, your projects tend to push you to your limits and to get you to branch out into other subjects. And I'm quite lucky that I did that in my own time, my extracurricular, my projects, like former student and all that. Extracurricular projects that make you look into, I don't know, computing or electrical or circuitry or civil stuff even, because you kind of need that anyway when you go into industry. You need to be well-rounded.
Okay.
But you do get that with any degree you get. You just need to look for it in the extracurricular stuff, or even in your dissertation and massive projects at the end of the years.
Okay, so I'll come back to the extracurricular stuff and your projects later on. But firstly, I want to take a step back and go back to like before university. What did you do at school that like helped your like application engineering? Like because for example, I feel like for example, Shahab, I thought I gave you some good advice regarding your A levels, but in hindsight, I'm not sure if you remember correctly what to take. I told you not to take DT at A level. I think it was at Adams, but then in hindsight, you may have been better off taking DT, for example. So, like for example, I don't think I'm a good person to ask in this situation. So, like,
All right. So in terms of the actual information you gave, I think it was still accurate. I would
okay,
take that. DT is very good. Obviously, if you could do like 5, actually for me, I would have switched that because I did the maths for the maths, physics, and chemistry.
yeah,
And chemistry was at least useful for me.
okay,
So I would have switched out chemistry for DT, but that was an AS. But I would have taken DT to a full A level then.
all right,
But then maths for the maths and physics, I would have still kept as A level. I would have been able, in my opinion, I should have been able to do that. But then DT is like, is very much what people call like, it would have been, if you keep on top of it, it would have been a fairly easy one because it's a coursework based subject. But yeah, no, I would have done I would have stuck with the same ones, maths, further maths, physics. I don't think DT was necessary. I
okay,
think the core of maths, further maths, physics, because maths and further maths definitely put you ahead of everyone when you get here. Because I still use the further maths knowledge up until third year. Stuff I was taught in further maths, that some people still haven't been taught here officially.
all right. Okay. How about you, Bilal? Did you do the same as well as Shahab?
So yeah, I took maths, physics, and chemistry for my A levels, A2s, and then for my AS, I took computing. So I honestly don't think it matters too much what subjects you take as long as you take maths and physics. And honestly, further maths, it does give you a head start in some of the modules, but it's not really necessary. Like it'll help you a lot in your first and second year. But if you want to look beyond that, it isn't necessary for your third year, for example. At least it wasn't necessary for me. In my course, we stopped doing Eng maths in the second year, and that was where third maths really came into play. Honestly, I took what is colloquially known as the Asian equation. So I didn't really take much risks in that. But if someone is choosing their A levels right now, as long as you have maths and physics as a core, any other subjects that you take afterwards, even if you're doing something like completely unrelated or technically unrelated to engineering, like art or English, it's still worthwhile if you really enjoy it and if you think you can get a good grade in it. Because at the end of the day, unless you're going for Oxbridge or Imperial, those top 3 unis, then it doesn't really matter as long as you have maths and physics.
Okay, so you wouldn't say you're at damage for disadvantage then, having not done further maths?
Definitely. you are at a disadvantage, but it's not so big that you shouldn't. So if you're in a
It's
situation where,
recoverable, is how I would put it. Is you get taught
yeah,
anything that the gap of knowledge that is there, you get taught between the first and second year anyway, because they assume the people that, well, at least from my university, assume the people that come here come with no further maths knowledge. And I
Okay.
think that's the same with any uni that you do apply for. They have to assume that you don't know it. They might brush over it, but they do give you the content.
Going on to actual university then. So Shahab, you went to Cardiff, and you went to Bristol, Bilal. Can you describe the cities that you moved to for university and how do they differ from home?
so the demographics in Bristol isn't as mixed as Wolverhampton or Birmingham, for example. Although there's a much more variety of people. So you have people from Malaysia, Singapore, etc. I guess because it's next to a university, but it isn't the most diverse city in this country. But what I do like about it is, especially the university, everything is a 20-minute walk from wherever you live, right? Especially if you're living nearby to the university. Not only that, it's a really unique experience, considering that it's in the countryside, but also a city. So 30 minutes walking from the center of the city, you hit countryside. So it's a really good place if you want a balance of a city life and a more quiet type countryside life as well.
For Cardiff, it's like, to be, in my opinion, I didn't think I would like it. And that's because I had the whole mentality of, I was kind of scared of big cities, to be honest. But Cardiff is not like that in that sense. It's not like London, in that scary sort of big city. But even now, that I think I would kind of like London now that I've gotten used to the whole city life. But the thing with Cardiff, it's so small, but it's still a capital city. So you have everything that you would ever need. Uh, Everything's within like walking distance. But it's also like very small. So you can get on a next bike, so one of those Boris bikes, and you can cycle from one side to the other, and like literally the extremes of like the suburbs to another suburbs. Yeah, from one side to the extreme to the other side in like half hour. Walking it only takes like an hour and a bit. But like the city center, you can get across in 20, 30 minutes. Like I live on the like properly student village area, and the train station, town center, dead center is only 20 minutes away, 25 max.
Are both cities like much bigger than Wolverhampton then?
Yeah.
I
Well,
I wouldn't say bigger.
not
It's
in terms
just
of population, but I'm not sure about the population, but in terms of the city centre, I'm pretty sure Cardiff will be the same as Bristol, but it's much, much more lively than the central Wolverhampton.
yeah, it's
I
definitely
think
places where you
might be
can
blinding you.
yeah, just
It's fine.
twist it right a bit. Yeah, but essentially, yeah. With Cardiff, sorry, I lost track. Yeah, it's quite busy and it's quite active. There's always something to do if you want to do stuff. Like if you get to know the right groups of people, then there's always something happening.
So now we talk about city, but how about actual university themselves? So what's Cardiff University like and what's Bristol University like? Shall we go first this time, right?
Cardiff Uni. So in terms of what do you mean? So in terms of like what is it to offer, or in terms
Yeah,
of
what
educationally like, or
yeah, like what has to offer, like what things you can get up to the university, how the teaching is like.
right? Okay, so let's start with the beginning. So you got like when you first get here, you're in the student halls. So student halls are quite nice in my opinion. They're a bit small, but like that's all student halls. But you get set up at the center of Cardiff. You're very close to everyone and all your friends, and they're quite easy to get along with the people, and they're really easy to like move about if you need to leave your place, which is what some people choose to do. So in my first year, I was in a group of a house of 8 of total, and it was quite hectic. But like I liked it. To be fair, it was a good change from home, but not too different because I live in a big household anyway. So yeah, it would have been too empty if there's not that many people. I would have felt empty a bit, but it was good. And then they had cleaners that come in every so often that cleaned it for you, which is quite nice. But yeah, so that's housing for first year, and then you move on and get your own private housing, essentially, rental in the area. There's loads of houses here. And if you ever get stuck, the student union, so like you can ask them for help essentially. From there, in terms of teaching in first year, in my opinion, it was quite easy. But I was quite focused first year. I was really on it, and I did fairly well. And the teachers are really nice, and as long as you ask them for help, they'll give you help. But the class sizes were quite big, in my opinion. They're like 200, so I like around then. Yeah, it shot down a lot over the years because people dropped out essentially. But
Wait, is that lecture size or like class size?
that is lecture size.
But how about like tutorials and so on? I presume they have
Tutorials. So even in first year there's 200 for
wow.
those tutorials as well. And they have some people that come around, but then like it dropped. Like that depends if everyone turned up. If most people didn't turn up, so it went down to about 100, then less so through the year as the year goes on, because people kind of like dwindle off anyway. But as you go through the years anyway, it goes drastically down. Like in third year for me, there was 70 people, and then in tutorials 30. So it was a manageable size. And like if you needed time one-on-one with the teacher, they're more than happy to give it, which is the benefits of like I feel like Cardiff do that really well. In terms of lectures and actual lecture content, they're pretty interesting. Like you depend on the teacher, in my opinion. I don't think the uni has much say on that. It's a teacher who does it and keeps it interesting.
Bilal, do you want to say about Bristol then?
Much of the same in terms of housing, apart from Bristol is very expensive to live in. Even the cheapest accommodations ran up to like £120 a week. And
that's not expensive. You're not been to London.
That I was going to give a caveat, right? Yes, it's not. It doesn't sound expensive if you're comparing it to London, but for a lot of other places in the country, it is very expensive. And yeah, so university life is. I mean, I had the same issue with the class size as well, but I have a sneaky suspicion that it was more so people not turning up. And in terms of the content, it was, I guess, to me, I just treated it as an extension of school, right? It was something that I had to learn. And some of it was interesting, some of it wasn't. I guess I was more interested in the more hands-on type of projects rather than exams, which could be kind of boring at times. And yeah, I guess that's a quick summary of most university courses.
I think it gets interesting in third year. Like from my perspective, I kind of found first year pretty like you're adjusting to things, so it's always fun, and when you're getting used to new things. Second year, you get to grips with everything, and I think third year for me was when like they actually gave us some interesting projects. Like I had my dissertation in third year, solo one, and I found that really interesting because they just gave you a lot of freedom to do it, but you had a lot of knowledge behind you, and you had a lot of help from your supervisor.
Okay. And so like you guys seem to take quite a keen interest on like the practical projects you kind of do at both universities. So like how's it split then? So I presume like probably the first year or two is heavily theoretical, and then presume like in the last year like you do a lot more project work. Is that correct? Or does it vary?
Somewhat. You do project work in first year and second year, but it's very contained. It's pushing a very specific learning objectives. Whereas in third year, you get to choose your objectives, your project goals, which allows you to do a lot more research outside of what's taught to you. And I think that's what makes it interesting and a bit more involved rather than the projects that we do in first and second year.
Is the case same at Cardiff as well, Shahab?
So yeah, like you said, in the first couple of years, they definitely push it. It's very more structured, the teaching then, the practical teaching. In terms of split, I would say it's probably 30% in first, second year. And then in third and fourth year, depending on what project you get. My dissertation was coding based. So I was doing an AI, something to do with AI. And then fourth year, I have 2 projects, very practical based. So even with COVID, I was very much in the lab and going in and spending many hours with like equipment.
So what would you say, like both of you, what was your favorite project that you worked at university?
Yeah,
I guess
I'll go first. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
mine was actually my extracurricular project.
Okay.
So Formula Student AI. Formula Student is a little racing competition they do. It's a global thing, and Cardiff Uni does fairly well on it every year in the combustion side of things. So that's the normal car racing sort of thing. We don't ever race head to head, but it's very much like a educational sort of thing. So it's all data wise. So you race it, but you just time it and compete against in timing. But then the one I compete in is Formula Student AI. So from my experience from my year in industry and my third year dissertation, I was able to become team lead for this little project. And essentially, we make an autonomous version of that car and race it against autonomous versions from other universities. It's a fairly new competition, and we've been in it for 2 years now, and I've been team lead for last year and this year. And essentially, it's a nice small team of like computers. What do they call themselves? Computer scientists and engineer and mechanical engineers. And hopefully we'll be building a car very soon, like a full scale one. But I don't think it'll be this year, probably next year. There's so much to it to do that you learn so much while doing it, and you have a lot of fun. To be honest, like you meet loads of people that you probably wouldn't meet if you didn't do the project.
Okay, and like, is this separate from like universities, right? It's totally
Yeah,
separate.
yeah. This is completely separate. So this so they get funding through uni sometimes, but like this since this is technically like a society, but not a full society. But it's like we get funding from engineering, but not from the university. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So how do you find it easy to do a good time between the two, doing both university project work and this?
No, it's very difficult. I'll be honest. It's hectic. But so my days at the moment are like I wake up at 6 and I go for a hike, and then like when I get back and like freshen up and everything, it's like 8 a.m. you start and you kind of work to like 3-4ish, and then you have like a little session, like a little chill session there, and then I tend to do the former student stuff in the evening. So for like maybe an hour every week. But aside from any meetings I do with them, so I do meetings twice a week with them as well. It does get hectic, but this is like by choice. I like being busy, especially with COVID and being kind of stuck inside. You kind of want to fill up your time. Keeps me active. So yeah, it's definitely by choice, but it's definitely doable. If I can do it, then most people can do it. To be honest, it's like that sort of mentality. I don't like time myself with everything I do. I'm not very precise with how I spend my time, but I do put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, it does sound like it's like quite time consuming in a way, but like if this is what you enjoy, like you might as well go for it.
It's a time sink, yeah. But it is, in my opinion, it's very worthwhile. When I take it to when I talk to about it with potential employers, they're very happy about it because as a mechanical engineer, having an in-depth knowledge of coding and AI and a hands-on experience with it, I tend to be that little bridge between like robotics essentially and mechanical idea and the software aspects of robotics.
Okay. Yeah, recruiters these days do really love coding and AI. They're like key buzzwordsy forever, machine learning or whatever.
Everyone loves those. Yeah, everyone's like looking for those people.
Yeah, so easy for us and like, oh wow, we're interested. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing to have on the CV or to talk about. So Bilal, have you done anything similar?
There's this an extracurricular project that I did called the Airbus Drone Dash, which is quite interesting. It was basically programming a drone to pick up these things on the floor. And that opened me up to things that I've learned about, but never really applied or applied it to the extent I did in this project, which was very heavily involved in like PID control and things like that. It's like systems control. And I found that really interesting, which is why I took robotics for one of my modules in my integrated masters. And that's really opened me up to programming in general. And that's something that I think I might consider in my future engineering career. But so one of my favorite projects was creating a line following robot. Simple as that might sound, it was a lot more complicated than I thought. And just tinkering away at something, again, watching it slowly get closer to the goal that you want it to achieve is really satisfying. And I think that's something that is fostered well in programming in general. It's something that people should at least have some knowledge or attempt to do, see if they're interested in it.
Okay, and on that note, we need to come to a short break for some ads, and we'll see you guys shortly after break.
This is Ramadan Radio. Little Dessert Shop continues to expand with stores in Bilston, Wolverhampton and Wednesfield. During Ramadan, we're celebrating our show-stopping dunking box for only £25. Feed the family with this exquisitely presented iftari gift, featuring the best from our menu. Enter Ramadan 25 at the checkout on our incredible new website. Visit littledessertshop.co.uk today. The holy month of gifting. From all at Little Dessert Shop, we'd like to wish you a blessed Ramadan and a huge Eid Mubarak.
Do you have a family member that's passed away and you would like someone to assist you in legal advice? Kenneth Jones Solicitors has been providing legal services for businesses and individuals since 1986. We specialise in probate, Islamic wills and family law. We also offer services in conveyancing, immigration and personal injury. Contact us today on 01902 745 773 or visit us on our website at kenneth-jones.co.uk.
Mubi Base Electronics, specialist in car audio and home entertainment. Suppliers of leading brands, Samsung, Sony, and Panasonic. We supply and fit all car audio systems, top brands, Kenwood, Bose, and we're an authorized supplier of Vibe product. Visit our store online at mubibase.co.uk and order today for next day delivery. Mubi Base Electronics are proud sponsors of Wolverhampton Wanderers FC. Call us today for a free quote on 01902 754 546 and quote Ramadan 20 for 10% off. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Mubi Base Electronics, specialist in car audio and home entertainment.
Is your home protected from the unexpected? It can be with Home Cover Plan, Wolverhampton's fastest growing home emergency cover from as little as $14.50 a month. That's right, for just $14.50 a month, Home Cover Plan will protect your boiler, radiators, electrics, plumbing and any other home emergencies with no catches, no call-out charges and no excess charges plus a boiler service. What's more, for Ramadan 2020, we're offering 15% off our policies with the code Ramadan15. Go to homecoverplan.co.uk now and join the many thousands already enjoying the benefits. Your tyres are essential for safe driving. They're the only link between your vehicle and the road. At Premier Tyres, we proudly stock leading tyre brands such as Goodyear, Michelin, Pirelli and more. We're also your go-to garage for MOTs, servicing, exhausts and all your mechanical needs. With the most affordable prices in town, unmatched quality, knowledgeable and fully qualified mechanics, we will look after your car no matter the make or model. Premier Tyres, Crown Street, WV1 1PX. Call 01902 455 684 or visit premiertyreservices.com.
Are you in receipt of benefits and looking for cavity wall or underfloor insulation? Did you know, with Northern Gas Heating, you could get a free boiler with the insulation measure of your choice? Call 0800 083 1000 or go to northerngasheating.com to see if you're eligible. It's a quick and easy assessment. Northern Gas Heating, celebrating over 20 years in the industry. We're proud to be the UK's local central heating company.
Pack Continental, your local best halal supermarket in Wolverhampton. Established for over 20 years, we pride ourselves on our fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. We have a variety of spices and lentils. We're also an award-winning Halal Butcher of the Year for 2 consecutive years. We supply excellent quality meat and poultry delivered fresh daily to our store. Visit us today at 1-3 Hunter Street, Wolverhampton, WV6 0QZ, or call 01902 717 792. Open 9am till 8pm Monday to Saturday and 10am till 6pm on Sundays. Go to RamadanRadioWolves.com and donate to your local mosque.
Welcome back to Going Beyond Wolverhampton. On today's show, we are discussing about what it's like to study engineering at university and the future career prospects it involves. Now we're going to talk about more of the practical skills they have picked up and also their working industry as well. So just before the break, we were just talking about the various projects you guys had done at university, and these required various skills such as programming. What programming languages did you guys learn for these projects?
So for a lot of the projects I did, I used Arduinos, and I guess Arduino has its own language, which is I think it's based on like C. But
C++.
I think C++. I think it's one thing that's shared in a lot of mechanical engineering courses is learning MATLAB, and there are some courses which dabble in Python as well. But so for me, my expertise lies in the C++ and MATLAB, and I from some extracurricular and some optional parts within my modules, I learned a bit of Python as well.
Same for you, Sharp, or did you use different languages?
So in terms of actual what I was taught, I've been taught MATLAB, C, C++, and that's why I've been officially taught from the university. From what I learned on my year at industry and like from my extracurricular, you pick up Python fairly well. You pick up C#, SQL, but like if you know one language, you kind of get the grips of all of them. I feel like you'd agree. I don't know how many languages you might know, but like from it's the mentality of learning it. Once you get the general gist of how they function, you can link the similarities and it flows very similarly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, for example, like I use R and Python a lot, but like for me, they're very interchangeable when I use them because it's basically the same thing, but you just change the name of a function here and there. And the functions are written slightly differently, but like it's still the same kind of thing in both ways.
It's all the same under like once you get to it.
For me, like I think a lot of people focus on trying to learn a language, but like I think the focus should primarily be when it comes to programming, especially. You like what do you actually want to do with the language, and like have you learned like a project using that language as well? I suppose okay, I know Python. Okay, what can you do with Python? I'm sure print hello world. But yeah, so having that versatility is quite useful.
Yeah, I think the best way of learning it is having a project, having an actual key goal. The best way of like if you're struggling with like getting off the bat and learning a language, definitely just make yourself a random goal, like something like a display or a UI or something that can like text your family automatically, something like that.
A goal and Stack Overflow is all you need. You can achieve whatever you want.
That's the best way to get experience with these sort of things.
Exactly. Again, like Stack Overflow is the best place to go. Like no one actually knows a language inside out. As a Stack Overflow is always like a go-to option. Like how do you do this and like so and so. Another thing on special say, both of you did masters, right? Yeah, and you did. Were you both just integrated, or did you do like specialized masters?
Mine was integrated.
Yeah, mine too.
Would you say there's like a benefit to doing integrated masters, or like is it better off doing like a specialized one?
Oh, I did look into doing a different one, and you look into it during your final. You're supposed to look into it if you're graduating in third year around about the end of second year, because all the application deadlines are around December of third year. And looking into it is definitely something everyone should do. Moving universities is in my opinion, probably the better option. And I would have preferred to have done that if I had been more on it. But because of how much time I had put into other activities around that time, I just kind of lost track of it. I didn't see it as important. I don't regret not leaving because I really like it here and I've made the most of it. And I think that's the same with anywhere that you go. You can go to any university and you can definitely learn as much as a person from another university, in my opinion, because engineering is such one of the subjects that you can self-teach a lot. But it just comes down to if you do want to move, definitely look into it.
So my response would be so I think people shouldn't do an integrated masters.
Okay.
Partly because it's very limiting. when you are in A level, right, you have no idea of. I think most people don't have a good idea how vast engineering is, and just locking yourself into mechanical engineering isn't the way to go. And it's not to say that you can't change, right? If you do an integrated master's, you can change your mind and switch your bachelor's and choose another master's or choose another integrated master. But I think integrated masters do is they kind of push you to a false sense of security, like, oh, I'm going to do that after your third year or whatever, right? And that false sense of security might not allow you to, or might make you complacent in searching for all the different avenues that engineering can offer. So yeah, that's my response to that. Yeah.
You say like it's a mistake, but on your behalf, you think doing integrated masters. So what masters would you do instead?
Robotics.
Robotics.
That's one.
Is that your interest, like your main interest, I imagine?
That's something that I would like to explore more. I feel like it's much better to do a bachelor's where you can either start working to get more experience and more knowledge of what working life is, and then come back and choose a master that's specific to the interest that you want to pursue.
Because you're talking about like gaining experience and then come back to university. Shahab, you did a year in industry, right?
So I went to a place near Gloucester called Delphi Technologies. They're an international brand that makes lots of different things to do with cars, essentially. But the factory that I went to was a diesel injector. They make diesel injectors for large vehicles. So like DAF, Daimler, Volvo, Mercedes, we make it for all of those essentially. It's quite hectic when you first get there. Obviously, you're getting chucked in the deep end. And I generally, my thought process when I first got there was university taught me nothing of use. And you kind of get there and you know all these equations and stuff, and you're like, why? Why do I need an equation here? This is a simple machine that I just like hit with a hammer to get it to work. But it wasn't actually like that. So work, a lot of work that I did was like data analytics for finding part failures and stuff like that. But it was a lot of hands-on stuff as well. So I did in my opinion, it was quite a good like all-around experience. I got a lot of hands-on work with working machines, getting these like giant like 3D 6 degrees of freedom robots, stuff like that. You got a sense of work, engineering, design principles, and you get in my opinion, it was a good all-around experience. I was very fortunate that my boss was like quite into teaching people. So he was all for me doing training, like image recognition training, getting extra paying upfront to get me some training from outside. And making the most of it is definitely what you should do. If you got a boss like that, just go all in. Because they do appreciate when you do actually put your time and effort in. Because I was offered a sponsorship for them for the past few years, so I technically could go back to them, which I won't be because the diesel industry is dead, unfortunately. But I still get money from them, so I don't really mind.
Okay, so at least they still support you now, then at least.
Yeah.
Okay, and how did like that experience shape you when you came back to university? Then like,
so
like,
yeah,
you've like how was your perspective changed when you ended second year and then started your third year of university?
Probably similar with like what a lot of people feel when they're choosing a degree. They don't really know what to pick. Well, at least when I came to engineering, I didn't know which engineering to pick. So I picked mechanical because it's saying to be the broadest one, the one with the broadest spectrum. It definitely helped me narrow down on what I want to do because I worked with a lot of robotics. I worked with a lot of microcontrollers, image recognition stuff, and then a lot of database related stuff as well. So it kind of made me realize that there is a lot more than what I initially thought I liked. So it kind of pointed me in the direction of robotics, obviously. But then it also taught me that I really had a big gap in knowledge in everything that I thought I wanted to do. So it kind of just pushes you. From my experience, it just pushed me to do more actual hands-on experience instead of just classroom teaching.
Okay. So what experience did you take on then after?
So that was when I started So I always did Formula Student combustion, so the engine, so the petrol fueled one. But then I went on to the electrical and the AI one when I came back. And so to just give an idea of the timeline. So first year, second year was at uni, then third year technically is the placement year. Fourth year is when I came back, and then fifth year is this year. So then fourth year I did FSAI a lot and Formula Student combustion. So I did them alongside each other. Both of these were extracurricular. And then this year, the way the uni has it structured is a Formula Student combustion. So the petrol one is actually part of our course if you select it as a project. So I do that as well as Formula Student AI as extracurricular. It's a bit confusing, but like essentially, I picked up a lot of side projects during the summer months after my project, after my internship, and then in the summer months after uni, I just kept doing projects, like my own little projects. In my opinion, it kept me mentally sharp as well, just like learning stuff. And it's definitely what employers look for. You put on your CV, I've done this project and this like home project. It shows a bit of self-motivation, a bit of but I do it because I find them fun, not because I feel like I need to. Most of it comes out of like a necessity for something. So like for one of the projects was to do with my car. Because I was driving around a lot, I was like, okay, I'll make a little, because it was one of the, your first car is kind of cheap. I didn't have one of those fancy like head displays that you get in those nice BMWs. So I was like, I want to have one of those. So I essentially made one with like a Raspberry Pi, a touchscreen, and I hooked it up to my car so I could get like all the details about my car as I'm driving as well. Yeah, it's just those sort of projects. You'd be surprised how much you learn from those. Like they seem like a little knick-knack, but like there's a lot of tech that goes behind them that you can do.
Was that car project part of university, or was that just like a personal project?
Oh, that's personal project. All these are personal projects that like I would recommend like pushing on yourself to do. Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty cool project to do. Like,
I only worked for a bit. No, I only worked for a bit. Because you got to keep the software updated essentially. Like, but then when I updated one part, my part like fell behind, and then they kind of like lost sync. And it's just like a neat little project, but like it's reusable in the sense that it's just a touch screen and a controller. So like your Raspberry Pi, everyone has like Raspberry Pis nowadays. They're like just cheap computers, your touch screen. But like, yeah, you can do a lot with them. To be fair, not just like car displays.
Anyways, so now we've talked a lot about university, and now I just want to talk about like what comes after university. So Shab, you're still at uni, but Bilal, you've now been working for how long now? 6 months?
I've been working from January, so it's been
for like 4 months. Okay, 4 months. Yeah.
4 months,
so Bilal, you're currently a design engineer, right?
Yeah.
What is a design engineer?
So you get a proposal from a client, and a sales engineer will most likely draft up the specification of what the client wants. And a design engineer is usually the person who makes that into a reality. So you take those initial ideas and then you create models through CAD and to make sure everything is feasible. And the outcome is a set of drawings which you can give to the manufacturer so they can actually make the components that you've designed. Yeah, so it's just making things into reality, I guess.
Do you use much of the skills from university in your degree, in your job?
There are a lot of things that you can do if you want to put in the effort. But especially in the industry that I'm in, it's quite mature. So what a lot of the calculations have been done before. There's an Excel spreadsheet for it. I guess you could use your skills in university to automate the things that are done manually at the moment in whatever workplace that you're in. Make a new spreadsheet with the equations that you know to speed things up. But in terms of the more experimental side, it really depends on what industry that you choose rather than what type of engineer you are, if that makes sense.
Okay. And do you see yourself being a design engineer in the future, or how are you finding the job? Like you've done it for 4 months, so it's a bit early, but like how are you finding it so far?
I think I'm going to wait and see.
Fair.
After I have a couple more months into it, then I'll have a better grasp of everything involved. Because at the moment, I've only gone through a small part of the workflow of the projects that are handed down in the company.
Okay. So Shahab, so Bilal just explained that like he's currently a design engineer, and where do you see yourself after university? Because you finish in August, right?
Yes, so technically I'm signed up to go back to Delphi,
Oh,
but
nice.
I don't think I'll be going. Like, it's part of the contract is lenient in the sense that I don't have to. So I won't be going back but I'm looking for jobs now. It's a bit varied at the moment. Like I've not put a lot of time into it, which I probably should have done. But the sort of areas I'm looking at is companies that offer training, because I feel like I still got a lot to learn, especially in the work aspect. So the companies are like NVIDIA, ARM, microchip manufacturer. You might have heard of them. I'm trying to think of other ones I've applied for. BP, so like a big gas company. They have a lot of money to throw into training. Those bigger companies have a lot of training behind them, because I feel like the general consensus of what I've heard from the engineers that I've talked to from Delphi, essentially, who have moved on to other companies, is that you pick up knowledge throughout your 20s and then you settle down around your 30s. And I agree with that mentality, because it's like you're young, you can bounce back, take the hit, move the job, learn as much as you can, and keep moving until you find where you're good at and stick to it. Then there's no point in sticking around your first job, in my opinion, for longer than 2 years. I think is my that's my plan anyway. And obviously it varies between person to person, but my plan is to just keep moving.
You don't want your future employer to watch this video then?
Yeah, they can't see this. Well, if they really interest me, then I'll stick around. But it takes a lot to keep me interested. For like even at Delphi, I hated it when I first got there, because it was quite like I didn't hate it. I actually really liked it, but it was like
keeping your options open.
Still coming out now.
It was the gap of knowledge. I felt like I wasn't fit for it, but like I really grew into it, and like it took me 3 months just to get the hands of things. I got to the grip of things, and then I got really good at things, and then like I felt like I was like running out of things to learn after 12 months. And that's it. To be fair, it's the sort of environment I was in. I'm not a fast learner particularly, but like I did put a lot of time, and my own time as well, during that year into learning all the little systems there, and I got fairly good at it. So that with that mentality, I feel like it'd be hard to keep me entertained for more than a year at a new place.
Moving on, just wrapping things up a bit. So first, like final question I'm going to ask is there any advice you'll give to 18-year-old self, like looking back now? So both of you are like 22, 23. So like go back to when you were 18 or like 16, for example, like just starting sixth form. What advice would you give yourself? Bilal, what would you say?
Okay, so when I was 18, I remember worrying about exams and just doing well in school. And I feel like it is important to do the best you can. But remember, it's university grade requirements is a minimum requirement. As long as you're confident that you can get into the university that you want, or a suitable grade for you to progress into university, that's fine. Apart from that, it's all about experimenting and finding exactly what you want to do. The earlier you find what you want to do, or at least in the general area of what you want to do, whether it be electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, or even more specific like fluids or materials, it genuinely does help, because it makes everything a lot more streamlined. And the earlier you experiment with that, just reading about it, watching videos on YouTube, the better you'll be in university and beyond.
How about you, Shab?
From my point of view, what I would tell myself is don't stress where you end up, because you can make the most out of wherever you go. Because like I was in a I got put I ended up at Cardiff through clearing, so obviously it was an ideal situation, but I definitely feel like I've made the most of what I could have done, and I definitely feel like I'm pretty well qualified in what I do. I don't feel I've wasted or been put in a worse position than I would have been. I think I'm actually in a better position than I would have been if I went to the university that I wanted to initially.
What was the original university you were going to go to?
I had an offer from Warwick,
Okay.
so it was closer to home, but it was like I still think I made the most of it. Yeah, it's definitely yeah. Just make the most of wherever you go is what I tell myself.
100%. Yeah. And then looking forward now, where do you guys see yourself in 5 years' time? Bilal, a accomplished design engineer. Shahab just leaving his 6th job on a trot. Well, so where do you guys see yourself in 5 years' time?
For me, I genuinely don't know. I feel like I'm still experimenting, still figuring things out, and yeah, I guess we'll all see. I'll see in 5 years' time by then.
Yeah, I think in my mentality is because I had the uni industry, which I think is very useful for this sort of thing. It puts you a year ahead essentially when you leave uni. It kind of helps me see myself. It will help me with this plan of like move along quicker. But it definitely the biggest thing I think I got from is also like university connections to other employers, because my friends that I used to work with in the CI team, the continuous improvement team, they've gone on to work at like Siemens. I'm trying to think of another name. BAE, MOD companies, so like military defense contractors, and they're all willing to help me out in this situation. Like because of COVID as well, it's quite difficult to get jobs essentially. But it's definitely COVID's definitely pushed back a lot of plans that I had. So like some companies have just not hiring. I don't think it's stopped my plans, if that makes sense. It's just definitely just like delayed them a bit, but I don't think it really makes a big difference in the end, because the companies that you wanted to go in the end will definitely still hire you if you're still qualified, because it will always need talent, if that makes sense.
Okay, that is understandable. Cool. Yeah, and that brings us to a wrap, more or less. Thank you guys for coming on today. And yeah, see you all next week.